I lost $52,000 the first time I dabbled. I got ripped off. I've never been ripped off again. It was a good, important lesson.
You lost your keyword or you got hacked?
I got hacked.
Okay.
So what happened was this conference, which I've never seen in previous years, was the first day was dedicated to institutional investors, of which the majority do not own any crypto, and yet they packed the room. And so what they're interested in, and certainly I as an investor am interested in, is what are the policy metrics? And there's 5 in the market right now. Yellen just spoke minutes ago. You could call her the 6th if you want. But number 1, Senator Lummis. She is crafting this massive bill. It's over 600 pages. It's huge. It'll probably be chopped into multiple pieces, but she's inviting everybody to the Hill that's interested, and she's asking for input from the private sector, including investors like me. We're all going there because we want our say, and as a result, it's a bipartisan effort. You don't see anything in Washington. So her policy embraces policy on Bitcoin, stablecoins, but not yet on NFTs. So that's what you know about that vector.
Okay.
So that's not going to address NFTs. Then there's POTUS's executive order. That's number 2. The good news there is he's not outlawing cryptocurrencies. He's embracing it for the productivity enhancement, but he's telling you he's going to regulate it, and you'll have more coming out to you. You've heard it through Yellen in 6 months. Another vector that just hit the market in the last 14 days was the SEC memo about requiring carbon audits for every public company. Now that is scary.
Well,
Bill, it's a bill that's coming from Haggerty.
Right, the stablecoin focused bill.
I have this bill. I want to show it to you. 1 page, 2 pages. I have never seen a bill from a senator that's 2 pages. And the reason I think he did this is so that every senator will read this bill.
Usually reams and reams of paper, nobody even looks at them.
I read it. It's genius. And all it says is, let's deal with one important vertical of crypto, stablecoins. Mm-hmm. Let's regulate them in a very simple manner. Let's disclose what's inside them, what backs up the value of them. Let's audit them every month, and let's not let them own any asset with a duration of more than 12 months. This bill on its own, 3970, could revolutionize a multi-billion-dollar industry in the stroke of a pen. So this is the kind of policy that interests me. I spoke with the senator. The idea is to make this an easy decision. I hope he can drive this home, because right now we're in limbo on stablecoins. Now, stablecoins are contemplated in the Lummis bill too, but it's part of a very much larger act. This is a single act. We'll take any regulation. Give us anything. I mean, we're going to make the assumption, because it's bipartisan and they've taken so much input from the industry, that we'll get something that's workable. It may not be perfect, but the reason you care as an investor, the reason you would want Lummis to be successful, or Haggerty, is that the institutional capital is like a giant dam of a wall of money that can't invest yet. So it's a spigot of capital in the trillions of dollars. Not a dime of it has been put into crypto yet. Can you imagine what would happen to asset values if they start to allocate? We're not even in the game yet.
Wow.
When you talk to sovereign wealth and large pension, nothing. What we really need is the SEC and the US regulator to make policy, and then the allocations will start, primarily in Bitcoin, probably 50 basis points.
So what would be that watershed moment? What needs to happen for all of these institutions that you say are just waiting for clarity, for them to get that clarity?
The easiest way to do it would be to do what the Canadians did and simply allow the first American-traded Bitcoin ETF, which could be purchased as a security into mandates that are already set up to purchase securities, like shares. Because they don't have to buy Bitcoin, they don't have to set up a separate wallet. They could simply say, okay, here is a true ETF with the underlying actual Bitcoin,
right?
And we can simply allocate 50 basis points to a $100 billion mandate. We can buy the ETF. That would be the easiest path to take. My guess is they're not going to allow that. There's multiple applications for that ETF, of which none have been granted.
Just had Kathy Wood's one rejected very recently.
Exactly. And so it doesn't matter which one is actually licensed, because there'll be 10 more that will come immediately. But we're going to need an order from the regulator to allow institutions to be compliant when they buy Bitcoin itself. I like what Haggerty's doing by saying, let's not try and solve all the world's problems. Let's just pick one asset in crypto. The easiest would be stablecoins. That may be the first to move. That would signal, and certainly the fact that this bill is out there would signal that there's an interest. And Toomey was on the air today saying the same thing. It's a good asset. The great thing about getting stablecoin nailed down on a regulatory basis in the US is that it creates a global currency backed by the US dollar. It keeps the US dollar as the currency of reference globally. And I don't know why regulators and lawmakers in the US wouldn't want that. They can do it with the sign of a pen, and everybody would get behind USDC or some other stablecoin, or maybe multiple stablecoins, but they're all backed by the US dollar. The whole theme of this conference this year is regulation is coming, and it's a good thing.
Okay.
That's the investment thesis. The majority of the world's wealth is tied up in sovereign funds and pension plans. They vote with their investments. They want regulation. They want stability. They want transparency. They're willing to work as they have for hundreds of years on providing security to people that trust them to manage their money. And if there's innovation and technology available in financial services, it's coming through crypto. This is an augmentation to an existing system that has trillions of dollars in it. It's not a new system. It's a system that makes the existing system way better. That's the way you have to view it as an investor. And so all we want is to be compliant within the existing ways. We don't need to change everything overnight. That's not the way to think about Bitcoin or the entire crypto industry. It's to take the innovation that exists here and augment the existing system to make it better for people. And I'll give you an example. Stablecoins could change the entire FX industry and make it far more transparent, far cheaper, far faster. Solana blockchain could accelerate transactions 100x that are already, it takes you days to get your money moved from one bank account to another in a foreign country. How inefficient is that? It could be fixed overnight. You can't do it without regulation. Let's embrace regulation. Now, there are other voices within crypto that want to rage against the machine. That's not my voice. My voice is let's work with regulators. Let's make this a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Let's make this better for every person on earth and provide transparency to the regulator in the way it should be. What's wrong with that? Nothing. And my investment thesis, by the way, is that's coming and it's going to appreciate crypto assets dramatically. We've taken this as far as we can get without getting institutions involved. That's the best way to look at it. Clearly, when you read between the lines of the SEC memo regarding ESG audits, the whole crypto mining industry claims itself to be carbon neutral by buying carbon offsets. That's fine. But you can't find an audit firm that will sign that audit because the tracking error of carbon offsets is so large that there's no way to prove it. So, in other words, if you're manufacturing a piece of equipment and it uses a lot of carbon-based power, and you buy an acre of land in the Amazon rainforest and you claim that you're carbon neutral, no auditor is going to sign that.
So you don't believe in the whole voluntary carbon credit market taking off in general, then, it sounds like?
I believe it if the auditor would sign it.
Well, maybe it's just a question of regulation catching up with carbon credits, just like regulation has to catch up with crypto.
Ask any auditor. The minute the SEC makes it a mandate, a law, I think that's the end of the carbon credit business. It is such, excuse my language, it's all BS. That's basically what I think, okay? So that's not going to work. And it's worked for years because you got to say, hey, here's a carbon credit. The airline industry is never going to be carbon neutral, no matter how many carbon credits they buy, and everybody knows that. But until there's an alternative way to fly, we have to live with that. Bitcoin mining, on the other hand, there is an alternative way, and this is why institutional capital is going to go to the alternative way, and that involves nuclear power and hydropower globally. There's only a single use case for gold, storage value. When you build a Bitcoin mining facility, you're essentially building a data center. The new oil is data. Where do you store it all? Every country now, particularly after what we saw in the Ukraine, wants to store the nexus of their citizens' information in all sectors of their economy on their own soil. The demand for data centers that are built on an ESG mandate, in other words, hydro or nuclear, is huge in every country. If you're Brazil and you're licensing crypto exchanges, you want all that data in Brazil. Luckily, they have tons of hydropower. If you're in the state of Montana, they want data centers to supply data centers to all the industries there. So Bitcoin miners have the option to look at the economics of whatever the price of Bitcoin is and say, well, that's more attractive right now than providing data storage, or vice versa. So all of these new centers being built off hydro and nuclear are basically infrastructure. That's the way I look at them. So if it makes sense to mine Bitcoin, and I personally think anything over 50,000 or close to it.
So 50,000.
But we're sitting at 43 and change today. But when I look at the models that for the returns on what I'm investing in the Norway facility at BitZero, for example, I'm happy if Bitcoin stays at 50,000 for a couple of years. That's great returns for me. But it's forcing everybody to make better computing power and figuring out a way to use the center for other uses. In the case of the Norwegian village where that BitZero facility is, they're providing computing power for the local university. They're taking the heat off the stacks and growing tomatoes with a canning center beside it. The community is involved. This is the new way of data centers. I think politicians have figured out that blockchain and blockchain derivatives and centralized and decentralized finance in aggregate as an industry has a lot of potential in terms of productivity to the economy. And all of a sudden, they're watching other jurisdictions become more advanced in policy, like the Swiss, like the UAE, like Canada, like England.
Well, UK saying they want to be the leaders in the field now.
And so I just heard from Jean Charest up in Canada, his team today saying, we're starting to think about Canada leading. And I think he's going to be the next prime minister. So I definitely want to get involved there. And so, for me, I think we can rule out that crypto as an industry is going to be banned in the United States.
Okay.
I think we're safe now. We've landed. The whole key to this is diversification. I said 5% weighting. That's a full allocation into one asset, Bitcoin. But I also own Ethereum. I own Solana. I own Hashbar. I've got Polygon. I bought a big piece of that private placement. I've got into Avalanche. I mean, there's so many different. It's all software. It's all software. And so if I'm buying Google and I'm buying Microsoft, why am I not buying these software ideas? And I am. But now I have the confidence in listening to the regulators that they're not going to make it illegal. Everybody that gets involved in crypto loses their first wallet. That's my theory. It happened to me too. And you don't like to talk about it. I'm open about it. I lost $52,000 the first time I dabbled. I got ripped off. I've never been ripped off again. It was a good, important lesson.
You lost your keyword or you got hacked?
I got hacked.
Okay.
So what happened was somebody hacked my passphrase, and I watched it being removed out of my account.
Ooh, painful.
Very painful. And I've kept those addresses to one day. Maybe I get them back, obviously not, but I learned how to avoid that happening again because now I have millions at stake. So I'm much more concerned about security.